Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Mike and this is Build and Tinker, and today we're continuing with our 1966 Batmobile from Fanhome DeAgostini, and we're looking at issues 45 to 50 this week. That will be another wheel, which is the final wheel I think, and a few engine components, radiator and airbox. But also with this issue we got this, which is another binder which we need because we filled up the first one. But way cooler than that is this, which is the 1/43 scale Batmobile, complete with a presentation box. Really nice little model and will look great on display next to the 1/8 scale model. So let's dive into this pack and get building. So I'm actually going to do issues 45 to 47 in one go, because actually it's the combination of the parts from those three issues that give us the entire wheel. So let's get the parts out and put that wheel together. So making sure we have all the screws and everything, we have some FM screws, some AM screws and some CPs, and then a little packet which has a, I don't know if you can see that, has a little washer in the middle. And obviously, same as the other wheels, I will get the instructions out just to be sure, but same as the other wheels, which you've seen me do 3 of already. We're going to take the outer chrome and the wheel inner, we're going to assemble those together, and one fits onto the other like so. So they just snap fit together. And that was everything for issue 45. And then in issue 46 we simply drop the tyre over the top. You can see why I wanted to do all of these as one. It's not to issue 47 we actually start assembling something, and then we take the outer rim and that just drops over the top, and we line it up ready to be screwed into place. The tyre seems to be identical on both sides, so it doesn't really matter which way round you do it. By now you've already done 3 wheels, so it's pretty much the same as the other 3. So we're going to take the CP screws and attach all of this. Now to complete this issue we actually need a part from magazine number 39, which was the remainder of the disc. The brake drum. So that piece just drops over the top, same as the others, and you can only put it one way. And then we attach that with a couple of AM screws. And the next step is to actually attach this to the chassis. So we need to go and grab that and put that on the bench. And just like the other 3 wheels, this is attached with a single FM screw which goes through the plastic washer first. And with the wheel attached, just like the previous 3 wheels, we put the bat symbol on our wheel hub and cover, and then we just gently attach it to the wheel, and there we have it. We now have 4 wheels on our Batmobile, which is brilliant, and that's the end of issue 47. Issue 48 requires us to assemble the radiator, although it looks like we're not actually going to attach it to the car yet. So let's get the chassis out of the way. And here are the components for issue 48, and we have a front and rear radiator matrix, and then the top and bottom elements. It's all black plastic, which is a bit of a shame because most radiators aren't black plastic. It's very similar to the one we got with Kit, the Knight Rider car, and actually with that one I spray painted the main element with silver paint, and it looked really, really good. So you could opt to paint this piece now before you assemble it. It's entirely up to you. I don't know how visible it's going to be once the car's complete, mind. So we have a top and a bottom. The bottom piece is the has two little studs sticking out. And, well, you can see that there. There's two little studs sticking out on the bottom piece, and the top piece doesn't have those. So that's how you can identify those. So that's the bottom. That's the top, and then we have the front and the rear. And again, the rear piece has this little hole in the corner there, so that's how you can identify that one. And it really is a case of taking the front, and with it the right way up, which you'll be able to see from the diagram in the magazine, we simply slide the top and bottom pieces the right way around over the little screw pegs. Okay. So with the top piece, you almost want to put the front part on and then rotate it over so that these lugs then snap into the holes. The bottom one just slides over. That was a lot easier. And then, as expected, we drop the back piece over and use the 4 AP screws to hold everything in place. And there we are, issue 48 complete. So issue 49 provides us with some of the ancillary components of the radiator and cooling system, and they're mostly hoses and caps. So let's make sure we have all the right pieces. We have a small piece of rubber hose, some more screws, AMs and APs, a short wide piece of hose, what looks to be a support bracket, a very chunky hose, and then another one with a bend in it, 49F, which is, they call it the water outlet. And then we have a couple of silver pieces, the radiator cap, and what looks like a stem for a valve, for a hose that's going to come off near the cap. So we start by taking the radiator we've just assembled, and I might just zoom you in a little so you can see. There we go. And there is a bracket which we're now going to place underneath the radiator. So we've got our hose outlet facing us, and then this goes on the opposite side, and there are some holes in here, so we need the holes facing these tabs on the side of the radiator, and that's what we're going to screw into. Okay, and with that assembled, we now take our radiator cap, and there's this little bracket which they call the overflow hose support. It's a very small silver piece, and it's keywayed, so you can slide it over the cap pin. Really hard to show you this, and you can see from the shape of the pin it will only go on one way round. We then take our length of hose and we attach it to the side of this outlet, so that's now going to stick out like that, and then that pushes into a hole in the top of the radiator, which again it can only go in one way round, so just check the shape and orientation of that, and there we have it. And actually that silver detail on the radiator is much needed to break up the sea of black plastic. We now set that to one side. We're going to be installing this angled hose here directly into the engine, so we're going to need the chassis back on the bench, and it's quite hard to show you where this goes on the engine because it goes underneath where the drive belts and the belts for the alternator and everything are, which is actually quite hard to see. So but if you have a look at the instructions here, you'll see it goes in just there. Okay, so I have this installed. It was ridiculously fiddly, and I have no idea why they didn't have us put this on before the engine went in. I do sometimes want to have a conversation with the designers, but there we are. It was much easier to put in with the car upside down, which they don't mention in the magazine, but it's not a particularly snug fit either, so there's a chance it may drop off yet. There are a lot of other hoses and bands in the way here, so we need to be a bit careful that we don't knock any of that stuff off, because it's going to be really hard to reattach later. The next step now is to take our completed radiator and install it, and the hole, so the stud on the end of that piece we've just fitted needs to go into a hole in the bottom corner of the radiator. So again, we've got to fit it and attach it to that hose, and hope that we don't knock the hose off in the process. The radiator sits on top of a couple of studs on the front cross member here by the looks of it, so in theory it should drop on quite easy. Just need to be gentle with lining it up. Okay, so that's sitting on those studs now, and I did manage to get it clipped into that hose. There are a couple of screws we need to put in to hold it in place permanently. They're 2 AMs. Okay, so the radiator is now bolted in nice and tight. So we take this hose, which was the sort of slightly wider, short rubber hose, and we're going to attach that to this water outlet. There's a little stud here just underneath that opening, and that just push fits onto there. We now need to then attach this to the top of the engine. You see here on the top of the block there's a couple of holes where this mounts, and it will then, the hose will point in this direction at an angle, and it connects to something. Now what does it connect to? Or does it not? Pin on the water pump. Okay, apparently it connects to a pin on the water pump. Okay, that's on the front of the engine. It's one of the metal pieces. Again, very hard for me to show you. And very hard and fiddly to do. In fact, it's probably easier to attach the water pump end first, because you're simply pushing down onto a pin, and then you can bend it round and put it into the outlet. Yeah, much easier to attach it to the engine first. It gets just down here and then onto the plastic piece. And then our final hose is this one, this big chunky one. It has a shape to it, and one end is cut square and one end is cut at an angle. The angled end goes up here onto this plastic piece we've just fitted, the water outlet, and it pushes onto there. And then the other end pushes into the hole in the top of the radiator. That's a reasonably snug fit. And actually now that's looking pretty smart with the radiator hoses all attached here. There's one more hose to attach, which is one that's already part of the engine, and I think it's this one. Fortunately, their pictures are so unclear at times. So it is one of these sorts of pipes, but it's not that one. It's one of the pipes that's actually dropped off. If you've been following this from the beginning, you'll know that we put all of the hoses on the engine quite early doors, and then they all dropped off. So I didn't bother reattaching them each time because they kept falling off. So we need to find that hose in my box of bits and attach it from here underneath the, well, it looks like the carburetor, and then it goes down all the way round to the underneath here and attaches somewhere down there. Again, might have been easier to have asked us to do that before we put the radiator on. So the pipe they want us to fit is 11F, and it came from issue 11, and I've just had a quick look at that to remind myself where it went. So it comes from the fuel pump, which is all the way down here. It comes up through here and into the back of the carb. So there is a pin on the back of the carburetor. It's underneath one of these brackets, so it's very hard to see even from my angle. Okay, so we've got it up through the bottom and out of the fuel pump, and we're just trying to get it round. It has to go all the way round behind the carb and then curl back, and this is where tweezers would probably help. Okay, I've got it roughly in position. Let's get some tweezers on there to try and slide it on the post. Also doesn't help, I can't really see. My eyesight's not great at the best of times. Right, that seems to be on. I did knock something else off in the process though, this piece, so I have to figure out where that went. So with pipe 11F fitted, we're now at the end of issue 49. So issue 50 is the assembly and installation of the airbox and filter. So we'll just take these parts out. So we have the filter base, filter top, a couple of pieces of air hose that looks like they sort of come together, the air intake, another part of that, and then a little silver piece which I think it goes on top of the airbox. Looks like a nut. Packet of screws as well, of course. These are APs. So assembly looks pretty straightforward for this. We take the base and we take our first piece of hose, which has got the bend in it, and the base sits over it like so. There's a tab with a screw hole in it, and we need to attach that with an AP screw. And then with that piece attached, this corner cover goes over the top here. And then we screw that in from underneath with two more AP screws. And then finally, for the hose piece, we attach this last top part. Just pushes into position, and there are no screws for that one. Now we have to attach this to the chassis, well, to the engine. So let's get that back on the table. And so we now place the air filter over the top. It's going to come out on this side of the radiator. You see there's two screw holes there, so it just drops over and sits neatly in place. Don't know if we've got all of our hoses in, but we'll see. A couple more AP screws. And then finally, the top cover. Literally just push fits into place. So there are three posts there, and they line up with the three posts on here. Let's bring that a bit more into shot, and then you just sit it over the top and line everything up. Now being careful not to push down onto the engine and break anything. It's a bit of a tight fit. There we go. Sounds worse than it is. And then our final piece is a little silver piece which represents the sort of wing nut that would have gone on top of one of these air boxes to screw the lid on, and that just pushes into the hole in the centre there. And that is the end of issue 50. So the engine's pretty much complete. There's still a couple of hoses here which aren't connected, and that may well be because, as I mentioned before, they tended to fall off. So I'm going to have to go back through some of the earlier issues and just figure out where they're all supposed to go and make sure they're all connected properly. I've also got the brake lines which came up from previous issues, which we've yet been told where to attach those. They're probably going to go onto the front firewall. But that's it. That's the end of those issues and the end of today's video. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please click subscribe if you haven't already. It's completely free and it really helps promote the channel. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And take care.